But shifting from softball to baseball, and we're going to talk to Brian Werner, president of Prospect Wire. And Brian, thanks so much for joining us today and coming on and sitting with me and Jack here.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's always great to be here and get a chance to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, and you have a big event coming up this weekend as well.
We do.
Talk about it.
Yeah, the Winter Classic. As we were talking a little bit off camera and everything, it's our biggest event of the fall. It's not supposed to be. It's not a normal time for showcase travel baseball to be taking place. It's an event that kind of sprung up out of COVID. In 2020, we didn't get to start until actually Polk County was the first place we got to kick off on July 1st. And when we all kind of came back and found a way to return from COVID, so the schedule kind of pushed back later. There were more teams playing into November and December. So there was a necessity to kind of have the event. The following year, the numbers started to trickle down a little bit more. So we thought that things were going to, kind of go back to the way they were and normal times. It seemed like that last year. The numbers were a little bit normal, and this year we're at 73, which is our largest that we've had by 10. We're using 15 fields this weekend. So
wow. And take real quick, we'll take a step back, and for those maybe that haven't heard of Prospect Wire, talk about what the organization is, who's participating, what age groups, things like that.
Yeah, basically a little bit in a nutshell. Prospect Wire, we've been around. This is the end of our 19th year this year. We'll be finishing our 19th season. We started just doing 16U and 18U was our primary focus. We got into the 14U, kind of after about 3 or 4 or 5 years, we got into that. Now we're 13U through 18U, and off the record, we're adding in 11 and 12U in California this year. So
that's on the record now.
It's on the record. So
we didn't. And talk real quick about your background, because you were became president in January 2021, but you have a varied background in sports and real estate and marketing. Talk about how that helps you in your role now as president.
I've been around with Prospect Wire since kind of sort of the beginning when we were just doing showcases. I was around when we did our first tournament in 2009 and then 2010. So I started kind of in the scouting business. I worked for the Yankees in baseball operations and scouting, so I had an eye for evaluating and kind of learned from a lot of really good people in the industry. And when I came over to Prospect Wire, I was meant to do that. Our owner kind of was taking on more things, so we needed someone to kind of take over doing the events, and I started doing all the national tournaments, and that's where I had been until 2019. We were sold to DS Sports Ventures, a group that's now in Lake Mary, Florida. And through a process of elimination, I always say I was named president in 2021 and still here. So.
And you came into the business in kind of a time where it was evolving.
Yes.
So you were a pitcher in college, 96 to 98?
95 to 98.
95, 98. So from pitching youth sports in the 90s or whatnot to now, an explosion, a complete. The industry has changed. So
there was travel baseball was Legion when I was in school. You played Legion. Boardwalk and baseball was one of the big tournaments when that still existed, and now it's not there anymore, obviously. But it's changed tremendously, and even since I've started doing this, it's changed tremendously. It used to be the kids would show up and they'd be on one team for 3, 4, 5 years. And now kids play for 3, 4, 5 teams in a season. They kind of bounce around a little bit more. There's a lot more teams that travel across the country to play in elite events now. So it's an ever evolving. Obviously, data is now a big part of the baseball world, of the sports industry in general. So it's an evolving world. I say I'm a dinosaur in an evolving world. So.
And Central Florida is really kind of a baseball. It's always been a baseball hub and always been a place where amazing talent is produced. But now with the different groups, Orlando, Tampa, whatnot. I mean, we have first round draft picks coming out of the Central Florida area all the time.
Yeah, when I was growing up, it was Miami. Obviously, I grew up in Miami. We had a ton of talent down there in Miami area. Sarasota was the big to do. Back when I was in high school and everything. But now Central Florida's got so many good quality programs. at the high school level. There's some coaches that are doing some great things and developing players, and also at the academy level, which is obviously a new thing that's kind of sprung up here in the last few years, and on the high school levels and travel ball levels, there's just so much great development and so many good programs to choose from in just this area alone.
Well, and you talked a few minutes ago about just the changes, the vast changes in just the sports world, the way kids play sports. And we talked to Casey earlier. He mentioned playing different sports as he grew up. You talked about moving to 11U. When are you seeing the shift of kids playing multiple sports and just focusing in on one, or where do you think the ideal age is? That's a loaded question for you.
Yeah, that is a loaded question. I believed, much like Casey had said earlier, I grew up playing as many sports as you could possibly play. Some of them much better than others. Obviously, baseball was the one that stuck, but I always felt like you should continue to play different sports until you hone in on that one that you might have a future in. Once you get to that point, when you're 15, 16 years old and you're getting ready to start thinking about where you're going to go to school, where what you want your future to be in that sport, that's when I think it's important to kind of hone in and go, all right, this is the one I'm going to focus on. This is where my training goes to, and the other ones need to become, unfortunately, a past hobby.
So you just mentioned in passing the data tracking, the stat stuff. How important is that as the game has become much more stat and sort of statistical heavy, as far as everything from pitch velocity to they track everything on these kids?
Yeah, for someone like me who kind of came into the baseball world and into the scouting world as an evaluator, that's where I got my start. I still believe, obviously, what you see is obviously my eyes are what's going to tell me the best story. But data plays a role. The data and the analytics are, as we always tell people when we go to different conferences and we talk about it, they're pieces to a puzzle. It's not the end-all, be-all. Scouting is not the end-all, be-all. But if you start to put numbers together, numbers begin to tell a story. And a lot of the people that work for DS Sports and for Baseball Cloud, guys like Johnny Gomes, will talk very passionately about how they can take those numbers, because numbers don't lie at the end of the day. So they can take those numbers and start to put them together and piece together a full story based on that, based on a scouting report, and based on what they're actually seeing during the course of a game. So.
Well, you talked about that kind of natural calendar throughout the year, and obviously Prospect Wire hosts many, many events within the Central Florida area. This is kind of that time when things, after this weekend, of course, you said 70-some teams, start winding down a little bit. Guys go off and kind of do some of their individual training, but as the calendar turns, talk about what's coming up in the new year for you.
Yeah, so next year's a big year for us. We're moving to a different platform, another off-the-record thing, but we'll be announcing that stuff here coming up at ABCA, which is the big baseball convention this year in Dallas at the beginning of January. But for us, next year we'll have a total of 40 events. For the first time, we've reached the number 40. We're getting ready to expand some added events out in California and everything, but we'll kick off our spring next year right here in Polk County. Russ Mat Baseball, which is a big, huge tournament, is part of our group, obviously, at DS Sports. Rob Seitz does a great job with that, but during the course of his event, we play alongside with our 13 and 14U divisions, our next-gen divisions, and we have a handful of tournaments during the course of the spring right here in Polk County that already are almost sold out. So we're looking forward to a very, very busy spring next year.
And it's going to be nice for those kids to not only see college players nearby, but also maybe to get a little exposure where you've got the college coaches that are wandering around. They may not get the opportunity to scout kids down here in Florida very often.
No, they don't. And as you said, a lot of the teams that come down are teams that the kids that'll be playing in the events have never heard of before. They're colleges they didn't know existed. And in today's world, a lot of kids, as they're growing up, obviously they want to play for the UCF, the USF, the Miami, Florida States of the world. But at the end of the day, the majority of the colleges that kids do end up going to are the ones that are in tournaments like the Russ Mat tournament. So.
Yeah, it's Rob and I have talked about it more than once. I got to see my now son-in-law pitch down here with Hannibal LaGrange, and I always say, hey, the NAIA schools, they have money too. So
baseball's baseball.
Yeah,
I'll say that to anybody. It doesn't matter what level you play.
The end goal is to have somebody else pay for your school.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, we talk all the time about sports business clusters and having governing bodies right here in Polk County, like Florida Youth Soccer Association and others. But to have two great organizations, big events right next to each other, like you just said, Jack, for those prospects to be able to see the next step, but then also to have scouts to be able to look at them as well. What a great synergy there between these two organizations.
And we're grateful. We're so grateful to Polk County and everyone, and Alex and his group that help us, that bring us in, and the fields are top notch. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Garen and his staff and everyone that makes sure that the fields we play on are first class here.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job. The grass looks fantastic all the time.
It does.
Well, if people want to see your full schedule or find out more about the event this weekend, where can they go?
Easiest way, as I said, we're switching over platforms, but prospectwire.com is the easiest place to go to. It'll link you over to where our new site is going to be and everything, and it'll have our full schedule up there and everything. Our social media is always a good one too. Twitter at ProspectWire.
Well, you're switching platforms, but definitely not switching logos. Like I said off air, that's an awesome logo.
Thank you.
With the glove and everything. I didn't catch that the first time.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's a great logo.
Hidden logos there. But thanks so much, Brian. We appreciate you coming by. Appreciate you hosting events here in Polk County. We're looking forward to the one this weekend, and then of course in 2024, a lot more to come.
Looking forward to it as always. Thanks guys for having me.
If you enjoyed this interview and want to watch more Sports Central, click the video below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.